All right, we're gonna start over again. Let's just pretend like none of that happened. Okay.
Erase.
Welcome to the Finding Favorites podcast, where we explore your favorite things without using an algorithm. Here's your host, Leah Jones.
Hi, and welcome to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones, and this is the podcast where we learn about people's favorite things and get recommendations without using an algorithm. This week is finally the annual Best of 2024 episode. It is my annual call-in episode where I ask guests and friends of the show to send me voice memos with their favorite things from 2024. Now, I just want to say that every single one of these voice memos was sent to me before the fires in Los Angeles. So there's a bit of a timestamp on them. And also you can tell by the release date, also all released before the inauguration. So there's a little bit of a time capsule feeling. In general, 2024 was kind of a hard year for a lot of us. But my friends, my guests found things that they loved about the year to share with us. So before I go into the first batch, I thought I would share with you some of my favorite live comedy performances of the year. If you know me, you know that in my early 20s, when I moved to Chicago, I pursued stand-up comedy. I went to open mics for a couple years. I was on, the same, when I think of like my class, like the people I would have come up with if I hadn't quit. The last couple years since we got COVID vaccines, I have really embraced being a fan of comedy, since I am not actually a stand-up comic and it's not something I'm pursuing. So this year, I make a point when Jackie Cation and Lori Kilmartin, who are both stand-up comics who are on the podcast, The Jackie and Lori Show, when they come through Chicago, I try to see them and I try to take friends to see them. So I got to see Jackie Cation this year at the Lincoln Lodge, and I got to see Lori Kilmartin at a new club in Oak Park. And that was really fun that they're going to there are new clubs, comedy clubs in Chicago, where I get to see some of my favorite people. I saw Kyle Kinane perform twice this year, once at Lincoln Lodge and then his annual show at Talia Hall before Thanksgiving. Paul Scheer, who is the host of How Did This Get Made and a previous guest on this podcast, he spent a lot of time in Chicago this year. He organizes an improv group called Dinosaur, and they did, I think, 4 shows at the Den in Wicker Park, and I went to 3 of the 4 shows, and I just took different friends as my dates to every show. And then he also did his book launch at the Den with Adam Pally. And if you've never seen sincere Adam Pally, it's confusing but wonderful. And then the spring was really fun because Michelle Collins came through on her Big Naturals tour at City Winery. Michelle Collins is someone I've known for a long time. We met at a conference 10 or 15 years ago, and we're mutuals, and I think she is so funny. She has a daily podcast and has been touring, and her live show is just hysterical. And I think even if you don't listen to her podcast regularly, her live show is still for you. So those were my top live comedy performances this year. Jackie Cation, Lori Kilmartin, Kyle Kinane, Paul Scheer, and Michelle Collins. So let's move on to the first few voice memos I got. First, Shy Corman from Friday Night Movie Podcast has so many movie and TV recommendations for you, which we always know is going to come from Shy. Jesse Dukes from Upper Middlebrow has a documentary to share with us. Liz Nord has a few movies. And then, so we'll do those 3 and then I'll come back. So please enjoy Shy, Jesse, and Liz. Hey friends, it's Leah. So I had apparently a very bad attack of ADHD. A challenge with editing over the course of weeks is that my notes didn't match the reality. So right here at the top, I want to tell you who we're going to hear from. And if they slip my mind, it's because I took notes in disparate places. Should I take my ADHD medicine more often? Yes. In this episode, in order, you are going to hear from Shy Corman from Friday Night Movie Podcast, Jesse Dukes, Upper Middle Brow, Liz Nord, Laura and Annie from the BFF Sticker Club, Chris Bagg from Upper Middle Brow, Pam Mandel from Canned and the movie Elvis of the Yukon, Mike Mataloni, Amy Guth, who produces the podcast Can and produced the movie Elvis of the Yukon, Rocco Cataldo, who directed Elvis of the Yukon, Jason Mathis, Steve Higgins, and Rabbi Zedek. And my show notes will reflect that, and I will get better at taking my medicine and doing my projects all at once. Enjoy this episode.
Hey Leah, it's your old buddy Shy from the Friday Night Movie Podcast. I had a year filled with a lot of favorites. I got to see a lot of cool movies and TV shows, so I'm going to focus on that, but this is kind of a mega list. There are old and new things because there was a lot of stuff I discovered for the first time this year. So, my favorites of 2024, which was a pretty great year for watching movies, were, in no particular order, but I do have some of the favorites at the top here. Of new movies, I saw a great horror movie called Oddity. Everyone should check that out on streaming. There's a couple movies from South by Southwest, from Down Under, that have not come out in the United States yet, but as soon as they are, people should check out Audrey and We Were Dangerous, which is actually from New Zealand. Audrey's from Australia. Then Frankie Frico is an amazing, weird, Gremlins-y movie that everyone should check out if you like horror comedy and stuff from the 80s. Even though it's not from the 80s, it's from this year. It's a really cool movie from the Astron 6 guys, Steve Kostansky and Connor Sweeney. Boy Kills World is a really cool movie, and I'm not going to say much more about it, but it's really, really cool. Loved Transformers 1, loved Roadhouse, The Fall Guy, a really cool movie from New Zealand called Head South about a band in the 80s. Hasn't come out in the States yet, though. Inside Out 2 is fantastic. Also really dug Furiosa and Deadpool and Wolverine. That's all the new stuff. Then on TV, I was really into stuff from Japan this year. So I dug Shogun, Tokyo Vice, and Sanctuary. Those are all, and Drops of God. Those are all shows that have some kind of cool Japan-related theme and have take place a lot in Japanese themselves, although some are not fully Japanese. Of new shows, I watched some really fun shows with my kids. Elsbeth, High Potential, St. Denis Medical, all really, really fun shows. Elsbeth is a great murder mystery show. That's a spinoff of The Good Wife, and High Potential is another great one with Caitlin Olsen from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And St. Denis Medical has Parks and Rec vibes, and it has Wendy McLendon-Covey from The Goldbergs, who you know I love. And then this was a big year for me going back and watching the movies of the 70s. I don't think all of these I'm going to list are from the 70s, but these are older movies. Well, I think most of these actually are. Yeah. Thief from Michael Mann, The Conversation with Gene Hackman, The French Connection 1 and 2 with Gene Hackman. French Connection 2, nobody talks about how cool that movie is. That movie was really cool. The Boys from Brazil, wow, that movie was blew my mind. Also, it has young Steven Guttenberg being a badass in it, so everyone should check it out for that alone. The 1978 invasion of the Body Snatchers just totally freaked me out and was fantastic. And I finally watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which is a really twisted movie and a reminder that Steven Spielberg, he should get back to making stuff that scares people, because he really knows how to make you scared even without gore or monsters or anything like that. Because I thought Close Encounters was really terrifying, even though I guess it's probably not supposed to be scary. Anyways, this was a great year for favorites. And of course, Finding Favorites is always one of my favorite podcasts. And I wish you a wonderful, amazing new year filled with many more favorite things and lots of candy. Talk soon. Have a great year. Happy New Year from me and my sisters and the whole Friday Night Movie family.
Hello, everybody. This is Jesse Dukes of Upper Middle Brow, also a podcast producer, also of the upcoming MIT podcast, The Homework Machine. And I am sharing my favorite thing from 2024. I have two favorite things. So one of my favorite things, and the most favorite thing, is a film that I did not know about until my friend Justin Reich told me about it. And it is called Born Innocent, the Red Cross Story. It is a musical documentary about the band Red Cross. If you don't know that band, I sort of knew them. I remember them from the 90s. I had one of their albums. I kind of liked them. They were a great kind of proto-grunge pop, power pop, punk, metal band from LA. Two brothers were at the heart of the band. They did have some long-term members and some short-term members. And the documentary is really as much the story of the two brothers' life as the story of the band. It is a great documentary. It was directed or produced by our friend Justin Reich's cousin, Andrew Reich, who used to be a writer for Friends, and now is just a Hollywood guy who does cool things like make this documentary. And he did a masterful job. Got great access with the band, with the community of musicians who remember them from the 80s and 90s, like the Mudhoney guys, some of the Nirvana guys, one of the Go-Go's, I think Vicky Peterson from the Bangles, some of the other people from the early LA punk scene. I think Greg Ginn might be one of them. It's also a great Los Angeles story, and it's a great musical story. And at times it is heavy and sad. They both went through some difficulties. It is also often light and hilarious. The two brothers are incredibly charismatic. They're still friends, and I happened to see a screening where the brothers attended and took questions afterwards, and they're just the sweetest guys. They signed autographs and gave out hugs and took selfies for as long as anybody wanted them to. They wrote a new song for the documentary. I think it's really, really good. And I mean, if you don't know Red Cross, it's a little bit grungy, it's a little bit punky, it's a little bit metally, it's pretty heavy. But the two brothers sing like John Lennon and Paul McCartney. They have that ability to harmonize. They kind of sound like John and Paul a little bit. They have the brother harmony thing going, and they write pop hooks kind of like John Lennon and Paul McCartney too. They were influenced by the Beach Boys. They were influenced by the Beatles. To me, I even feel like you can hear sort of Everly Brothers, Simon and Garfunkel, that kind of harmony blending, but with just absolutely shredding guitars and heavy riffs. Great band, great story. Born Innocent, the Red Cross Story. Check it out. And if you run a independent theater music box, they're touring the film right now, so you can request it at your theater. And Andrew will do a screening, probably. Maybe even the Red Cross guys will come, depending on whether it's convenient. So check that out. My other favorite thing, this is sort of like self-promotion, but not really, because my favorite thing was making another 30 or so episodes with my good buddy Chris Bagg for Upper Middle Brow. I don't know if they're good episodes or not. I mean, I think they are, but I'm not necessarily recommending them to you as a favorite thing, although if you want to check out Upper Middle Brow, you'd be very welcome. But I just want to say my favorite thing has been collaborating with a good friend on a fun, low-stakes, creative, artistic project, and that's what Upper Middle Brow has been. So, happy holidays, everybody. I'm recording this on the solstice, which means hope is returning to the universe. The Earth is going to tilt closer to the sun. I'm going to enjoy the longer days. I don't know that I'm going to enjoy the politics of the next months or years, but I will enjoy the longer days, and I wish you well. Oh, close with your social media handle, podcast, and or books for people. Social media, Curious Dukes is both Twitter and Blue Sky. JP Dukes 9 is Instagram. I'm still trying to figure out which of those I'm going to quit. You can check me out at jessedukes.com. You can find Upper Middle Brow at uppermiddlebrow.com. And keep your ears open for The Homework Machine, the upcoming podcast from the MIT Teaching Systems Lab about the arrival of generative AI in K-12 education. The Homework Machine.
Hi friends, this is Liz Nord from Brooklyn, New York. I just got back from an incredible weekend in Curacao with the one and only Leah Jones and was reminded to send in my favorites of the year. So a couple years ago, I was on the Best Of episode mentioning the TV show Gotham, one of the Batman spinoffs, and I'm going to come off like a comic book super fan, which I don't think I am, but this year's favorite is also related. The HBO series Penguin, The Penguin, I think it's technically called, is focused on the penguin. Surprise. It is so well crafted. It is so incredible. Colin Farrell plays the notorious baddie, the Penguin. The show focuses entirely on him. There's no appearance of Batman. It's sort of a penguin's origin story. And it's very, very dark. But it will make you really rethink your relationship, if you have one, with all of the Batman stories. The characters are nuanced and complex. The production design is incredible. Again, Colin Farrell deserves all the awards. I'm just so impressed. And there's also an entire podcast going behind the scenes of the show and talking about how they pulled it off, which is a really good listen as well. So happy holidays, everybody, and enjoy 2025.
Okay. Thank you again, Shai, Jesse, and Liz. In our next section, we're going to hear from Pam Mandel, who is the writer. She wrote the Elvis and the Yukon movie that Amy Guth produced. And she and a couple other people from the movie have been on the podcast. So she sent in a clip. Mike Mataloni, who was one of the OGs of Chicago Twitter, is up in Wisconsin now. We reconnected on LinkedIn, and he sent me a voice memo. And then Kedra Cheney, who you know from a wonderful episode on K-pop stuffies, K-pop Dollstagram. And she is who I learned from about zine culture and disability culture. So she has some great updates for us as well. So in this next section, we're going to hear from Pam, Mike, and Kedra. But before I turn it over to them, another thing that I think what I learned during the COVID lockdown was how much I missed live theater, live comedy, music to some degree. But I want a chair. I don't want it to be too loud. So I don't see a lot of live music. But live theater, through both my season tickets to Broadway in Chicago and just now my friends knowing that like I'm someone who will say yes to going to the theater, this was a great year of theater for me. I saw Illinois at the Chicago Shakes before I went to New York. This was this like dance concert based on the Sufjan Stevens album Illinois, which I never listened to. I didn't have a relationship to the music, but I laughed and I wept, and it was beautiful. And I wish more people would have the chance to see Illinois. For Broadway and Chicago highlights in 2024 for me, it was Some Like It Hot, which had been on Broadway and was now on tour, in part because it had so much tap dance. So much tap. If you're lucky in a Broadway and Chicago season, you'll get like 2 tap numbers. And Some Like It Hot had so much tap dance, and that made me so happy. Also had been written by Amber Ruffin, and that was phenomenal. And then the pre-Broadway tryout for Death Becomes Her with Megan Hilty, based on the 90s cult classic movie Death Becomes Her. Just had great gowns, practical effects. It was so fun. I'm getting on a plane in the morning and going to New York. And I'm tempted to see it again because I saw it pretty early in the run, and I know they made cuts and additions and changes. So I'm really curious about where it landed finally. But I loved the pre-Broadway tryout. Let's see, another local performance that was outstanding to me, the Writers Theater in the North Shore did Great Comet, not Natasha and Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812. And if you are a longtime listener of this podcast, you know that my friend William Pacholsky, good friend from college, and made arrangements for us. One, he recorded an episode of Finding Favorites all about the Great Comet, but he arranged for like 8 of us to go the week, like in the opening weeks on Broadway. And I ultimately saw it twice on Broadway. And I think I liked the local production better because it was so stripped down that I followed the story, because the Broadway show had so much incredible production value and wow that there was a lot of the story that I missed. So I really, really liked The Great Comet at the Writers Theater. And then I had a weekend of theater in New York. Went with my friend Dahlia, and we saw An Enemy of the People. We went to see it because Jeremy Strong was acting in it, and she was really a big fan of him in Succession. And it was theater in the round. Phenomenal show. And then my friend Jonathan Raviv was in a play called Here There Are Blueberries, about what the U.S. Holocaust Museum did when they received a photo album of like candid photographs from Nazis taken out at and near Auschwitz. And like, what do you do with that part of history? Like, how do you tell the whole story? And that was phenomenal. And I'm actually headed to see Jonathan in a new musical this weekend in New York called Nightside Stories. So I'm sure it will come on my best of 2025 list. So those are my best live theater experiences for the year. And now I'm happy to turn it over to Pam, Mike, and Kedra.
Hey, everybody, I'm Laura.
And I'm Annie.
And we are the BFFs from the BFF Sticker Club.
That's right. It's a sticker club for adults.
That's right. I mean, it's for adults, but it's mostly for the young at heart.
We do sticker challenges, we sell stickers, we have sticker lives on Instagram, and we even have an annual sticker camp for grown-ups.
That's right. I wonder if people can guess what our favorite thing from 2024 was.
You want me to guess?
Yeah, just take a shot in the dark.
Okay. I think it was our second annual Camp BFF Sticker Club.
That's correct. That is correct. Yep.
Do you want to guess what my favorite thing is going to be in 2025?
The third annual Camp BFF?
Bing, bing, bing. Do you want to tell everybody about what we do at Camp BFF Sticker Club?
Well, Camp BFF Sticker Club is basically camp, but for adults. It's a sticker-themed weekend getaway full of magical people from all over the world, all over the globe. They
Even
come from all over.
Australia.
Australia. Those Australians are amazing, I'm telling you. And we get together in our homeland of Indiana and we sticker. There have been reports of unicorn sightings, and
Hmm.
we eat popcorn and cotton candy, and we do sticker challenges. We sing songs. What else do we do?
Well, we have a lot of fun.
Lots of fun.
It's very wholesome.
Yes, that is the word that I hear so many people say about Camp BFF, that they feel that they found their people. I feel like people say that a lot. And they say um,
They say that
that
they had fun,
they say that they have fun. That's right.
and I don't think they're lying.
I mean, I would hope not. It's too wholesome for lying. It's just
That's
truth.
right. Anyway, we would love if you came and hang out with us at Camp BFF 2025. You can find more info about it on our Instagram page at the BFF Sticker Club or at Camp BFF Sticker Club.
You can also learn more at our website, www.thebffstickerclub.com, or go to our Etsy shop, which is the BFF Sticker Club.
I think we did it all right.
Yeah.
Hey, Leah. Chris Bagg here from the Upper Middle Brow podcast. This might be too late. I hope it is not. But my favorite thing in 2023 is a book that is almost 50 years old. Jesse and I did a couple episodes on Joe Haldeman's The Forever War, and it is so good and was so prescient when it was written in 1974 that I listen to podcasts these days about science and technology and culture, and they will often talk about things that make me think about the ideas that Joe Haldeman came up with. Just today, I was out cross-country skiing, and two of the people on the podcast I was listening to were talking about time dilation and artificial intelligence and cloning. And we might have just been talking about the final section of The Forever War. It was an amazing read. It's a classic, and I have obviously come to it quite late. But I think that was the thing that made the biggest impact on me in 2023, and I am recommending it to everyone who will listen. Thank you so much. Love the show, and I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, Finding Favorites. My favorite thing about this year has been the unexpected joy of launching Canned, a podcast about getting fired. I got canned in June, and something about the experience got me all curious. I enlisted my very favorite, see what I did there? My very favorite producer, Amy Guth, and set out to interview people about that time they got fired. It's weird to say this about what is typically an awful experience, but every conversation feels like a gift. Every person I've talked to, some anonymous, some fully on the record, has had smart, insightful things to say about work and the role it plays in our identity. I have had a terrible year for work. It's been rough, but the energy and generosity of the people who have shared their stories, it's completely lit up my year. Here's a shameless promo. You'll find it at cannedpodcast.com. And if you want to talk about getting fired, please get in touch. All my contact info is on the website.
Leah Jones, Mike Mataloni, long time. Greetings from Northeast Wisconsin, where I now reside. Thanks for the invite to provide my favorite things for 2024, and it was nice that the algorithms of LinkedIn provided some serendipity in learning about your podcast. There's a couple of things that come to mind as far as my favorites for the year. One of them is discovering new things to eat. This is not only a personal thing, but also for my family as we're on our health journey, and not only just looking for new things to eat, but also new types of products that are wholesome and made with real ingredients, locally sourced, spending a lot of time at the farmer's market, talking to farmers about what's new, what crops are coming, local grass-fed beef, plenty of dairy, both cow and goat here in Wisconsin, even using goat's milk soap. Right here in the town I live in, there's a woman who goes by the name of the Soap Chick, and she actually makes goat's milk soap that's mixed with mud from the Dead Sea that she brings back from Israel. It's really good soap and very fascinating. Additionally, I would have to say that any time that I am able to do something creatively analog, whether it's reading a real book with paper pages and a bookmark, or doing some writing or doodling in one of my notepads, still writing my blog at thehotiron.com. Put that plug in there. Going on 18 years now. It's a great moment. We did a family vacation, and the airline we flew on didn't have Wi-Fi. I was happy with that. I was able to bring a book, and I finished that book on the flight out and back. So, those are kind of things that were favorites for me in 2024. Looking forward to 2025, and still trying to think about what I want to make for the year. And hope all's going well with you. And thank you for the opportunity to share my favorites with you listeners. And yes, read my blog at thehotiron.com.
Hi, Leah and Finding Favorites. This is Kedra Cheney. My favorite things for 2024 were, in a way, me going back to my roots. A lot of what I really enjoyed this year were things that I used to enjoy when I was younger, and I feel like I'm just kind of coming back to them. Not regressing, but just kind of coming back to like my true self and things that I just really love. Um, I've started reading romance novels again. I have for the past couple of years, but this year I feel like I really locked in and started to just really like spend a lot of my time reading romances. I used to read romance novels when I was in high school and in college, first few years of college, and I just dropped off just because life. But romance novels are so great now. There's so many great authors. It's so much more diverse. There's so many just kind of different, there's so many stories that that are pulling from people's experiences and identities. There's great Black romance novels, there's great multicultural romance novels, there's like queer romance novels, disabled romance novels, like all these different perspectives and just stories of romance from different types of people. Oh, fat positive romances, just all sorts of things that are just really great to read. And just so, especially in such a dark time right now, it's just nice to have something light and fluffy. So like authors like Christina Lauren, Jasmine Guillory, Farrah Roshan, and that's just like there's so many fantastic writers out there putting out great stuff. And in Chicago, there's actually a new romance novel um, bookstore called The Last Chapter in Roscoe Village that is really great, super helpful, and just like a wonderful place to connect with folks who are into romance novels and trying to find out kind of where your place is and what you're into. So there's that. I also started getting into zine making, which for me is kind of a throwback because in my early 20s, I did a lot of like independent media stuff, kind of tangentially connected to zine making, but more like just independent press in general. And so that's been really fun to kind of make my own stuff and go to zine fairs. There's a lot of Midwestern zine fairs that go on throughout the year, and just connect with people in real life that are creating things. I think after so many decades of being extremely online, it's been really fun to be in a more physical space and create things that are tangibly held, that are physical, that focus on reading. Um, and so that's been super dope. Um, and then musically, it's been real interesting for me because like I'm like the K-pop girl, but K-pop's been kind of boring for me lately. Just like, okay, I guess. It's more popular than ever and I find it more boring than ever for some reason. Um, but uh there's a member of NCT named Yuta who's Japanese and he put out a banger of a Japanese rock album. It just sounds nothing like K-pop. It's just rock and roll. And I have been bumping that all year. Um it's called Depth. It's in English and Japanese. It's just hard rockin' music. And so I feel like I'm in my K-pop rocker girl era and I've been loving that. Okay, so that's all I have. I am Keidra Cheney on Instagram. I am KDC on Twitter, Boo, Blue Sky, yay. I'm also Wild Ramp Publishing on Blue Sky, and that's where my zine stuff is. And so that's what's going on for me in 2024 into 2025. So, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Pam, Mike, and Keidra. Um, so we're going to go into my last trio of messages. And for that, I wanted to share my highlights of travel this year. Now, this is not going to be in depth as I had meant it to be, in part because I'm about to go and travel with one of my regular travel companions this weekend, and we didn't have time to record. But in April, me, Jocelyn, who's my co-host on Candy Chat, Ronnie, and my two upstairs neighbors went to my parents' house, put tents in the yard, and camped out to see the total eclipse. The total eclipse of the sun in April in Terre Haute, Indiana. And I had been told you can't miss it. If you have the chance, you got to go. A partial eclipse is nothing like the total eclipse. And, I just didn't know what that could mean. And as soon as the eclipse ended, I turned to Ronnie and I was like, well, that can't be the only eclipse we see in our life. Like, that can't be the end. So we're starting to look at an eclipse that's going to be in Europe in 2026 because it was the most magical, eerie, otherworldly, celestial event that I have experienced. Then this summer, obviously, I took my big trip to Africa. I went to South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Kenya, and I took the Rovos Rail, as recommended by Nicole Byer and Sashir Zameda, and Rovos Rail from Victoria Falls to Pretoria, and then flew up to Kenya to see one of my dear friends. And I'm now far enough away from that trip that I don't think much about the luggage that never made it and disappeared because Turkish airline is bad. I love them and they're awful. And then I rounded out the year with a trip to Curacao. And when I was in Curacao to learn more about like Latin American Jewish culture and the Jewish history of Curacao, it happened to be the Geminid meteor shower. And we were just sitting on a beach on Shabbat, and one person noticed a meteor shower And then we just sat there watching meteors on the beach in Curacao. And so that has made me want to figure out, can I plan a trip for next December where I bag the northern lights and the meteor shower on the same trip? So that is what I'm planning. So we're going to round out this with Jason Mathis, another friend from college. One of the very first interviews I ever did. Steve Higgins, who comes back every year with recommendations. And then you met him just a few weeks ago. Rabbi Michael Zedek will be our final person. So take it away, gentlemen.
Hi, this is Amy Guth, and one of my favorite things about 2024 is a film that I produced called Elvis of the Yukon, premiered at the New York Cinefest in 2024, and it had its LA premiere at the iconic TCL Chinese Theater, and that was pretty cool. You can find me at amyguth.com. I also publish a Substack of writing prompts called Writing for Weird Times. And I host a podcast called Words Matter. And I also produce a podcast called Canned, Conversations About Getting Fired.
Hi, this is Rocco Cataldo, and some of my favorite things from 2024. I got to travel to the south of France to produce a few video segments for the Cannes Lions Festival. And also, starting off my Substack, Stuff Rocco Found. It's where I take 5 of my favorite articles that I find on the webs and share it with people. So that was my 2024, and it was fantastic. You can find me at Rocco Cataldo on all of the social media, and at Potenza1 on Instagram, and rocco.substack.com for Stuff Rocco.
Hi, Leah Jones. This is Jason Mathis, former guest of the podcast, calling in to talk about things that were my favorite for 2024 and dumpster fire of a year, if there ever was one. But let's start off top with, I hope somebody better situated than myself will talk about Chapel Roan, and definitely Hot to Go, the song of the summer, a song that anytime I listen to it still cheers me up just a little bit. And it being a anthem for female gay sexuality and also a straight pop banger that was everywhere, including in Trader Joe's the other day, which officially means it's over. But Chapel Roan is definitely number one on my list for favorite things of 2024. A slightly odd tangent one that I'll throw in is I discovered the joy of roasted capers when I was fortunate enough to eat at one of Jose Andres's restaurants, and figured out after some Googling how to do it myself, in that the air fryer is the perfect device for roasting capers. Make sure you dry them off, throw them in the air fryer, and they produce a taste which I can only describe as the perfect amount of burnt popcorn, that perfect half-cooked kernel of burnt popcorn that is just full of richness and umami flavor. So buy yourself a jar of capers, dry them off, and try toasting them in the air fryer, or if you got bigger aspirations, the oven. My final recommendation is the book I read this year that I bought myself for Christmas, which is about my favorite band of all time, REM. It's called, the name of this band is REM. It's by Peter Ames Carlin. It is a ultimately great, in-depth, but utterly readable biography, which I compare in style to the Chernow book that Hamilton is based off of, in that it provides a ton of information, a ton of research, but at the end of the day is a total page turner at the same time, which is very difficult to pull off in a biography. So I recommend, even if anybody has a passing interest in music or in the band REM, check out this book. You'll learn about all types of things beyond those that you know, like just losing my religion. So check out, the name of this band is REM by Peter Ames Carlin. Everyone have a happy, safe, great, joyous 2025. May all the good things you hope for come to pass, and none of the bad things you fear come to fruition. Bye now.
Hello, Leah. This is Steve Higgins, and I am sending in a voice message with my favorites of 2024. I had an amazing March in 2024, so I want to talk about some of the interesting and fun things that I was able to do, and that led to all my favorite moments, really, of 2024. One of the things that I did in 2024, I'm a professor at Lewis and Clark Community College, and one of my former students is a filmmaker in the St. Louis area, an independent filmmaker, and he is doing a film festival. Started in 2023, continued into 2024, and the third annual one's coming up in March of 2025. And he asked me if I would be a judge of some of the films that were to be selected for the competition and for the festival itself in March of 2024. And so I was very privileged to have that opportunity. I watched a total of 20 feature-length independent films, saw some really great films, and one in particular that I want to highlight is a horror movie called Redhead. It is currently going to be coming to streaming on Amazon and then on other streaming services right about now that we're talking, this episode dropping. It should be coming any day now. And it is a very gruesome horror movie. If you like movies like Terrifier, it is in that vein, that it's pretty graphic and gruesome. But what really sets it apart in my mind is the fact that the killer, the lead character of the film, is a woman who, in the opening scenes of the movie, is the victim herself of a serial killer. She is the final girl, essentially, of a horror movie that we don't get to see. We just get to see kind of the end result of it, that she manages to escape from her captors. She has to commit some pretty violent and bloody acts in order to get free. Has to watch several people she cares about die along the way. And that's all in the opening of Redhead. And the plot then of the movie is, how does she cope with that? She checks herself into a mental hospital, but her insurance only covers a certain amount of time before they're like, yeah, you're good enough. You can be released. And she is not well. She is not fit to be back in the public yet. Once she's out in the real world again, she has to deal with horrible men, as many men are in this world, and she has come to learn that violence is the way that she solves her problems. So she starts taking out violent aggression upon the awful men who confront her. And it is a very powerful kind of statement on the state of mental health in America, the state of the patriarchy in America, and all under the auspices of just a really gory, nasty horror film. And I do highly recommend it, but if that's not your thing, you probably should give it a pass. But if horror is your thing, I think that movie is one that you would enjoy. The really hilarious thing to me is that Joanna Hodge, who plays the killer in the film, is an absolute sweetheart. I got the opportunity to meet her during the film festival, and she is so sweet and so nice and just the kindest person you'll ever meet. And she plays a gruesome killer very, very well. Clearly allows her to tap into some dark things. Also in March, my family took a trip to New York City, went to Broadway and saw a number of Broadway shows. Got to see the amazing Tony Award-winning cast of Merrily We Roll Along. Got to see Darren Criss and Little Shop. Got to see Sutton Foster and Sweeney Todd. Got to see Jordan Fisher as Orpheus and Ani DeFranco as Persephone in Hadestown. So it was an amazing trip and really had a great time. My daughter, my wife, and I, and as well as two friends of ours. But the absolute best show that I saw while I was there was Kimberly Akimbo. It was the Tony winner last year for Best New Musical, and it is about to be touring. I've already got tickets for the touring production when it comes to St. Louis at the Fabulous Fox Theater. I might end up seeing it more than once. It was such an amazing show. It is a show about a teenage girl who has a rare genetic disorder that causes her to age prematurely. So even though she's about to reach her 16th birthday, she looks like she's in her 60s. And she's just moved to a new town and is having to try to find acceptance in her high school and make friends, even though there's this thing about her that is very, very different. And it's about coming of age. It's about living life to its fullest, because one of the plot points of the film, I'm not giving anything away by saying this, but one of the plot points of the musical, is that most people with her genetic disorder don't live past their 16th birthday, and she's about to turn 16. So, that feeling of everybody else is waiting for life to get started, and she's realizing that she's kind of close to the end of her life. And it's beautiful, it's funny, it's heartwarming, it's heartbreaking. An absolutely wonderful musical, Kimberly Akimbo, and I highly recommend your listeners, if they are theater lovers, they go to see it while it's on its national tour this spring. It's well worth seeing. Immediately after my family returned from New York to the St. Louis area, the very next day, I took my daughter to her first concert to see Olivia Rodrigo with Chapel Rowan opening. And it was just an amazing experience to get to take my daughter to, a huge production like that. And it led to my third favorite of the year, and that is Chapel Rowan. Listening to her music, I don't think that more than a couple of days passed without me listening to that album in full. It's such a phenomenal album, and she deserves every bit of fame that she has achieved over the course of this year. She's a phenomenal artist, brilliant songwriter, brilliant singer, and I cannot rave about Chapel Rowan's music more highly. And all of that kind of just leads me to the last thing that I wanted to say, that this year of favorites for me wasn't really about my favorites. As the year kind of went on, my daughter turned from 12 to 13, close to the end of the year, and just getting to see the world through her eyes and her favorite things become my favorite things, and things that I like, she then picked up and ran with. I introduced her to The Good Place this year, and she absolutely loved it. I introduced her to Fraggle Rock this year, and she absolutely loved it. She's always been a big fan of Doctor Who, but this is the year that she became, it kind of transitioned from her watching Doctor Who with Daddy to her wanting to watch Doctor Who. She loved the new Doctor. She loved the new companion, Ncuti Gatwa, and Millie Gibson playing the Doctor, and Ruby Sunday. She loved those characters, and she loved the stories, and she was itching for each week the new episode to drop, and she couldn't wait. Same thing happened with WandaVision and Agatha All Along. I had watched WandaVision and I thought that she would like it, and we watched it in preparation for Agatha All Along coming on. She's a big fan of Joe Locke. Joe Locke actually was in the Sweeney Todd production that we saw. And so when she found out that Joe Locke was going to be in a Marvel show, she wanted to watch that show pretty desperately. And she loved Agatha All Along. I liked it quite a bit myself, but she absolutely loved it. And getting to see her passion, getting to see her find her favorites was a transformative experience for me in these past few months. Even just yesterday, I took her to see Wicked, the movie version of Wicked, and it was not something I was super eager to see, but I knew she wanted to see it because she loves musicals, and she loves that musical in particular. So I'm like, all right, I'll take her. And I have never seen the sheer joy on her face as a surprise cameo. If you haven't seen the movie, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but by now I imagine a lot of people have seen and know what I'm talking about. But when that surprise cameo happened, she was elated in a way that just filled my heart with joy. Not because it was my favorite, but because it was her favorite. So if there was one experience this year that was my favorite, it was watching my daughter find her favorites. So that was my 2024, a year that definitely could have been one that was pretty rocky, but one that I learned to find joy in the people that I care about. So thank you very much.
Among my favorite things for 2024, I would include that I can share this little expression with Leah and her legion of followers. But let's get a little more substantial. One of my favorite things about 2024 is that it's over. It was not the best of years for a lot of reasons and for a lot of folks. More seriously, 2024 favorite things. The love of a life partner is not just a favorite thing, it's a matter of the heart thing that is more than words. Selfishly, I still love chocolate. And an even more selfish expression, my book, Taking Miracles Seriously, available at Amazon.com, just went into its second printing. So that's really something I'm delighted on, proud of, and very, very much appreciative of those who bought it. Please buy it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Finding Favorites. If you like us, please recommend it to your friends, rate it 5 stars, thumbs up, whatever you can rate it on your app. Please share it, please subscribe, set it to auto download. One of my other favorite things in 2024 was continuing to work with Rob Abrazato. And while he didn't edit this episode, he engineers and edits and does incredible show notes for the show on a regular basis. And so I am so grateful that Rob came into my life and works on this podcast. Oh, wait. Right before I'm not going to do the big edit, but Chris Bagg also was in there right after Liz Nord. Chris Bagg is also from Upper Middle Brow with Jesse Dukes, and I didn't have his name bolded in my list, and I just missed him. because I was also thinking a favorite thing this year is I love my little podcast collabs, especially with Upper Middle Brow and Friday Night Lights. Not Friday Night Lights, Friday Night Movie Podcast. And I want to be a guest on your podcast. I want you to be on my podcast. I would love to do a live show in 2025, a live Finding Favorites. That would be a lot of fun. And if you want to support Finding Favorites, you can also Venmo me $100, because $100 is what it costs to edit an episode. I don't think I'm ever going on Patreon or anything, but you can Venmo me at Leah Jones 1, Leah-Jones -1, I think, $100, and that'll pay Rob for the week. So with all that, wear a mask, wash your hands, get your boosters. People are out here without getting your COVID booster. The boosters. Get your COVID booster, get your flu shot. It's been a brutal year. If you're eligible for pneumonia and RSV vaccines, get them. And keep enjoying your favorite things.
That are in food. I'm screwing up here. I'm stopping this and calling you back. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Finding Favorites with Leah Jones. Please make sure to subscribe and drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. Now, go out and enjoy your favorite things.